As always, it's good to be with you on the program tonight. There's been much concern about the recent decision by the Supreme Court concerning homosexuals and their ability or right to be married. We're going to look at this. We're going to look at it through history. We're going to look at it biblically. We're going to look at it just with common sense and ask some questions that needs to be asked and see if we may be able to determine what the real motive is and what the real push is, and what the real desire of not only what has become the United States of America's government, but also the governments of the world as pertaining to Christianity. If one looks at the 4 degrees of sin, of which I've brought to your attention many, many times, that it is the sinner, it is the evil, it is the wicked, and it is the abominable. Those are the 4 degrees of sin. As you read through the Bible, you will see oftentimes God speaks of this particular act being of evil, or this performing wickedness, or this is an abomination. We are all sinners. That is true. But all sinners are not evil people. Evil people are people who desire to harm, desire to hurt. Wicked are those who has been twisted, which the word wicked means. They've become twisted. They no longer know the difference. Their conscience has been seared, cauterized, burned up, and they no longer know the difference between right and wrong. And then there is the abominable, the lowest rung on the ladder, the greatest depths of sin, the abomination, the abominable. The Bible tells us that homosexuality is an abomination to God. The Bible tells us that sowing discord among the brethren is an abomination to God. These are abominable acts, not just evil, not just wicked, but encompasses the whole of it. It is an abomination. Now, America has chose to go this way, and I've talked to you also many times about the difference between individual sin and national sin, and how that God will judge an individual for their individual sin and never really affect anybody else. But whenever sin becomes a collective thing, that is, if a person is now going to begin going in a non-biblical direction in his church, a pastor may begin to move the church now in a non-scriptural way or a non-biblical position, and the whole church support the pastor in doing it, then collectively the whole church becomes guilty of the sin. To where if it's just an individual sin, that sin is between that human being, that individual, and God and them only. So national sin is when a whole nation gets behind and supports the abominations and the wickedness of the land. Now, I've told you that America is ripe and primed for judgment because now we have so many, and from the voting of this Antichrist that's in office now, and I say Antichrist in the sense of the spirit of Antichrist. The Bible tells us there are many Antichrists. There will be one that embodies the whole of it. Just as Jesus would embody the fullness of the Godhead bodily, there will be one that possesses the fullness of the satanic realm, Satan manifested in the flesh, if you will. Barack Obama is not the Antichrist. Barack Obama is the spirit of the Antichrist. And that is something that is clearly established. The church world, by the multiple millions that voted for the man, not once, but voted for the man twice, will have to answer for this, for there is a collective sin. But America does still have and still manifest and is still showing some of its sense. Because you see, we have seen, much of America has seen the direction that America is going, the direction and the desires, the lying and the deceit of this administration and of this president. And in seeing it, America placed a man in office, the first Republican in 60, 70 years or more in the state of Massachusetts. They elected that man to be in the Congress 2 terms back for one sole purpose, and that was to be the deciding vote to stop Obamacare. And then the Democrats changed the policy procedures to where a simple straight up and down vote would be sufficient, and thereby bringing it in the back door. The last election of the Congress and the last election of the Senate was an American landslide. It was one of the largest landslide victories, turning the Congress away from the control of the Democrats. One of the largest landslides in U.S. history. The American people voted. The American people spoke. They wanted a change. And all of these Republicans ran on the platform that they would stop Obamacare, that they would stop Obama from his unprecedented, unlawful activities. Once they got into office, the first thing they did was prolonged Obamacare for another year. Now it's been passed by the Supreme Court again, unconstitutionally. But still and yet, what we're finding is that America has spoke. Landslide victories. And the people that they voted for, who promised them one thing, got into office and did nothing that they promised. Now we find ourselves in this position of sliding further down, and maybe there is no further to slide. We will ask those questions tonight. We will see what the Bible says, and then tell you, who may be unbelievers or agnostic, may tell you that you better hope that the Bible is not right. You better pray for the first time in your life that the Bible is not right. Because America has now went into the depths of sin. And not only that, but in a national way, waved it in the face of God. Now, there's a couple of things that I want us to look at. Number one, there's a myth concerning separation of church and state. Jefferson never said, and the Constitution never says, the Bill of Rights never says, that there is a separation of church and state. That was a statement simply made by Jefferson as he wrote to the concerns of a Dansbury Baptist Association back in his day, who had heard and received and partly believed rumors that there was a Congregationalist organization in supposedly the Christian body that was fixing to be acknowledged as the national religion. Well, our founding fathers, who had came from some of the greatest persecution the world has ever known, because a state religion, Catholicism, had been in place in Europe, and it had caused much bloodshed and much death. And so our founding fathers said, we're not going to establish a national religion because we're not going to force that upon anybody. You will be free to worship as you choose to worship. But nowhere is there this statement of separation of church and state, which is used now to separate anything that is religious, and follow me, please. To separate anything that is religious from government or public properties or laws. Based upon this non-existent law, this non-existent principle, that there's a separation of church and state. We can remove the Ten Commandments because there is separation of church and state. Well, the law of which you are removing it upon does not exist. There was no such law. There is no such law. Very simple. The rights of the people should be afforded them as is given to us by the Constitution. That if a state wants to recognize the Ten Commandments, put it to a vote and vote on it. But now what we have is we have renegade, liberal, activist judges who is now establishing the law in America, which is judicial tyranny. And that's not overstating the case. The simple fact of the business is this separation of church and state is non-existent, but it is non-existent. But it is what is used to attack religion from the public square. Though I stress again, there is no such law nor statement in our Bill of Rights nor in our Constitution. Now, with that said, understanding now how the power and the push is to remove everything that is of God from the public square and from anything to do with government, and they have the right to do so by this non-existent law that I've referenced. Well, then let's use that non-existent law and apply it to what was just done. If one says there is a separation of church and state, that would mean that each would be separated equally. And I've already stressed a number of times it's not a law, but since it is what is being used to rape America and strip America of anything godly and religious, then let's use it. And ask this question. If there is a separation of church and state, or if we are going to acknowledge that or accept that, then it would be a separation of church and state. Not just a separation of state and church, but a separation of church and state, which means then that what is defined as spiritual or even moral based upon spiritual truths, because there's nothing moral comes from that hellhole called Washington, D.C. Nonetheless, with that said, whenever we look at the right to remove all religion from anything public or governmental, then we would have to also say that the government then equally has no right to step into the realm of spirituality, Bible, or religion. It is a separation, and the line that would separate religion from crossing over into government is the same line, the same barrier, or the same wall that would stop government from crossing over into religion, if that's how you want to play it. Now, I would ask the Congress, I would ask Barack Obama, were I able to do so, I would ask the 5 reigning Supreme Court judges that just now unconstitutionally usurped the rights of the states with this homosexual marriage. I would ask each of them a simple question. I would ask Mr. Obama, Supreme Court, Congressman, where in history, when in history, did a government ever create marriage? What year did that happen? What century did that happen in? When did government create marriage? Well, the simple fact is government didn't create marriage. So then, if government didn't create marriage, then where did marriage come from? Where did the idea, where did the principle of marriage, where did it originate? Where did a man and a woman being brought together in marriage, put together of God? When did the government ever start that? The only thing that got government involved in marriage at all was in the late 1800s, when the government sought to, with a marriage license, of which George Washington didn't have, but yet he was married. A marriage license, that of which Adam never had, yet he was married. Where did marriage come from? The only reason the government ever involved themselves in marriage at all was, once again, to prevent interracial marriage and to collect taxes off of those licenses. That's why government got in it. But before the late 1800s, nobody possessed a marriage license. They were married before God, in whom created marriage, and created marriage to be between a man and a woman for the purpose of legal procreation, to keep the world alive, to stop fornication, to legalize the act, and to bring forth children and procreate and keep the earth alive with human beings. As I've pointed out to you before, we're all to become homosexuals overnight. Then this right now would be the last generation of human beings to ever grace the face of this planet, proving that homosexuality in and of itself is an administration of death. It would kill the entire earth as concerning mankind. What is here now would be the only thing left. And after we all died in our homosexuality, there would not be another child ever born on the face of this planet, and it would be the end of humanity. That's what homosexuality, that's what it would do. Well, the argument then is that some would throw back would be, well, everybody's not going to become homosexuals. And I would then say, well, then you are counting on the life of mankind on planet Earth to be sustained by that old religion that you hate, by that God that you say don't exist, and by them stupid idiots that obey this stupid Bible and God stuff. You would be dependent upon them to keep something here for you to adopt because you can't produce it yourself. And going back to that point, God created marriage. You'll find no place in history that a government created marriage. You'll find in no place in history, no time, no place, no date. So, marriage is a religious function. So the same wall that supposedly divides church from state, that same wall divides state from church, or state from religion. So what right does the state, a governmental body, a Supreme Court, what right then does the government have to involve themselves in marriage at all? Marriage was created by God, and it was told how it was to be. If state has no right, religion has no right in government, government has no right in religion, why are they in a religious function? Why are they dictating and changing? And now we have become the only people on the face of the earth to ever redefine marriage. Oh, there's been people who's perverted it, but no one has ever redefined marriage except this godless country and this godless bunch that's in Washington, D.C. right now that was put there by many of you that call yourselves a Christian.
You will see a time in which we as a nation finally recognize relationships between two men or two women as just as real and admirable as relationships between a man and a woman.
It's a religious institution, marriage is. If the government says you have no right to put a 10 Commandments on public ground or 10 Commandment on government ground because it violates church and state, then we have the right to say you have no right in marriage because that violates church and state. Being that you didn't create marriage and you have nothing to do with it. It was here before you got here. It is a religious function. Now, the dividers are here. They passed this law. And in passing this law, they then immediately, Barack Obama and his White House lit the White House up in the homosexual rainbow colors. The first thing that I thought when I saw it was that the nation has now been baptized in perversion. You see, Mr. Obama is a street worker. That's what he did. Organizers. They are better known as agitators. That's what the street organizers do. They agitate. They keep people. They keep this group in a constant state of agitation to where at the drop of a hat they can get them to burn and to loot and to destroy. And all the mess that we see now on a regular basis as this community organizer now has become president of the United States of America, doing what he does, agitates one of the rules of the 12 rules of Saul Alinsky, the man of whom Mr. Obama taught his courses in college, the man of whom dedicated his book, Rules of Radicals. Saul Alinsky dedicated the book to Lucifer. This is who Hillary Clinton wrote love letters to in her day. This is who Barack Obama follows and teaches his course. The 12 rules on how to destroy America. One of those rules, as I've presented to you many times, one of those rules of Alinsky is to keep people in a constant state of agitation, which is what Mr. Obama, the street hustler, is doing. A constant state of never-ending agitation. Why would a grown, mature man, at the passing of a law of which just 3 years ago the man said he was against, why would he then press and push this issue? And in so doing, once it is passed and forced upon unconstitutionally upon the American people, to then rub it in the face of the majority of the American people by turning the White House into a rainbow homosexual flag. This is the most divisive human being this country's ever known as a leader. And we see the division taking place in our streets. We see the division taking place now among races. We see the division taking place all through this country now as this street worker now sows division and agitation across America, waving in the very face of Almighty God this abomination stated from the mouth of God, and rubbing a nation's face in the moral filth of which he is committed. Well, it tells us things that is pretty obvious and pretty clear. It tells us the state of America, and the Bible tells us this. It tells us to mark those who sow division. So as a Christian, working from a Christian book, that's what I'm doing. To mark those that sow division. I'm marking Barack Obama as a discord sower. His records of the past proves from owners of homosexual bars in Chicago that he and others of administrations were members there and regularly frequented the place. And the owner of the bar said what Mr. Obama's preferences was when he came there. You see, these people tell us one thing. I'm against it. And then they get in office and they do it. The deceit and the lies. We've never known them such as we know them now. Well, the Bible tells us this, that Sodom and Gomorrah was an example to all who would live in that ungodly manner afterwards, that they would receive to themselves the same damnation. What did God do with the homosexualized cities of Sodom and Gomorrah? He burnt them to ashes. He overthrew them. He rained fire and brimstone upon them. And the Bible warns us that anyone who goes in the manner of Sodom and Gomorrah will be judged in like manner. That's not at all a comforting thought, considering today there are hydrogen, nuclear, and atomic bombs. He rained fire and brimstone on them. And in like manner shall any nation that goes in that way be judged. So, as I said at the beginning of the program, so I say now, you better hope the Bible's not right. Because if it is, America's crossed a line now, and with a rainbow-colored White House, rubbed it in the face of Almighty God. And for that, we won't survive it. Now, with that said, we lost our email address, got disabled after 15 years, no explanations given by Google. We also lost our ability to upload anything to YouTube. We also had our PayPal account shut down, all in the same week. Suspicious activity, to say the least. The PayPal is up and running and doing fine, and we need your support. We're now able to upload to YouTube, and we have a change of email address. So please, as you see it on the screen, please make a note of it and send us an email so that we can start trying to get our contacts back, back on the record there. So you'll see the address, you write it down, you'll see also the address to the church and all. If you want this program to continue and stay on the air, I will have to hear from you, and I hadn't been hearing. So if you want us to stay here, I will have to hear from you. Until the next time, may God keep you and bless you. We love you in the Lord.
I wish I was on a fast train back to Tupelo. I never should have got this close to Mexico. These skeeters flying around my head, they got me worried too. You never know these days what's biting on you. These city folks, they kind of dog-eat-dog. This ain't no place for a country boy at all. Is a simple life lived anymore, anywhere? Front porch picking, eating chicken in a rocking chair. Fishing on the pond and Sunday prayers in the air. I give all I got and all I'll ever get just to go back there. Left a year ago, I guess I should have stayed. Sometimes we just don't know when we got it made. This city life's too fast, I can't keep up. I'm missing them old dirt roads and that pickup truck. Is a simple life lived anymore, anywhere? Front porch picking, eating chicken in a rocking chair. Swimming at the river and Sunday prayers fill the air. I give all I got and all I'll ever get just to go back there. Is a simple life lived anymore, anywhere?